Have you ever stopped to wonder if, maybe, your kindness is actually holding you back? Today we're going to dive into something pretty shocking, the hidden cost of being good. And our guide for this journey? None other than the timeless, and let's face it, pretty controversial Niccolo Machiavelli.
All right, so let me just start with a question for you. Do you really believe that being kind keeps you safe? That your generosity automatically builds this unshakable loyalty? Do you think that just being a fundamentally good person is enough to guarantee you'll be safe and respected? Think about it.
Well, if you answered yes to any of those, I've got some news. You, and probably most of us, have been taught a pretty dangerous lie. The core idea we're going to unpack here is that your goodness, when you just apply it blindly, isn't the shield you think it is. Actually, it might just be your biggest weakness.
You know, this isn't a new idea. Machiavelli saw this play out centuries ago. I mean, he literally watched as kind, well-intentioned leaders were just destroyed, betrayed by the very same people they'd helped. And his conclusion was pretty brutal. In a world full of wolves, being a sheep, even a really good, kind sheep, well, you're just gonna get eaten alive.
Okay, but let's be crystal clear about something here. The goal is not to become some cynical, evil person. Absolutely not. It's about making a shift, a really important one, moving away from this passive, blind goodness that basically paints a target on your back and toward what we'll call strategic goodness. Think of it as a precise tool that you wield to command respect and actually make a real impact.
So, let's break this down. What are the actual traps we're talking about here? I mean, how exactly does being the nice guy or nice gal totally backfire?
Okay, trap number one is what you could call exposure. See, when you're always kind, always agreeable, people learn a simple rule about you. You don't say no, you become predictable. There's this perfect example of a manager who is just fantastic to his team, always helped them, always put their needs first. And yeah, they loved him for it. But when a big promotion came up, he got passed over. And why? Because to the higher-ups, he looked like a great servant, but not a leader. His kindness ended up being exploited instead of respected.
And this is where Machiavelli's famous quote just fits so perfectly. He said you need to have two sides. You need the cleverness of a fox, right, to spot the traps people are laying for you, but you also need the strength of a lion to scare away the wolves. If you're just a good sheep, you're completely defenseless. You've got no chance.
All right, that brings us to the second huge trap, and this one's a real mind-bender. It's called the generosity trap. It's this completely counterintuitive idea that the more you give, the less people actually value it over time. Sounds crazy, right? But it's true.
And the psychology behind this is just fascinating. Think about it. The first time you do a big favor, you get tons of gratitude, right? But the 10th time, it's just expected. Your amazing kindness has just become their new normal. So what happens when you finally have to stop? When you finally say no? They don't remember the 10 times you said yes. All they feel is resentment for the one time you said no. And just like that, you go from being the hero of their story to the villain.
So what's really going on here? It's a basic principle of human psychology. We adapt. We just get used to good things. There's a fancy term for it, hedonic adaptation. But it's simple, really. Machiavelli knew this instinctively. He advised leaders to give out benefits slowly, a little at a time, so that each one is actually felt and appreciated. If you give everything all at once, you just destroy the value of the gift.
All right, so if being blindly good is a trap, what's the way out? Well, it takes a pretty fundamental shift in your thinking. You have to adopt a bit of a Machiavellian mindset. And what that means is focusing less on your good intentions and a whole lot more on how the world actually perceives you.
Now here's a truth that can be a little tough to swallow. People don't judge your heart. They judge your image. They react to what they see, not who you secretly are deep down. And that means managing the perception of your goodness is often way more powerful than the goodness itself.
And look, this isn't about being fake. It's about being strategic. Think about a surgeon, right? They have to cut someone open to save their life. It looks brutal, but it's a necessary act of goodness. In the same way, a good leader sometimes has to make tough, unpopular calls for the greater good. It's all about knowing when to show your softer side and when you need to show your steel.
Let's try looking at this from a different angle. Let's call it the economics of power. I want you to think of your time, your energy, and your goodwill like they're money in a bank account, because they are all finite resources. And every single time you say yes to someone's request, you're making a withdrawal from that account.
And what happens if you just keep making withdrawals without ever checking your balance? You go bankrupt. You're left totally exhausted, probably resentful, and you're in no position to help anyone, least of all yourself. You know that safety rule on airplanes? Put your own oxygen mask on first before helping others. It's the same principle. If you pass out trying to be a hero, you haven't saved anyone. You've just created another victim. So self-preservation isn't selfish. It is absolutely essential if you want to be effective.
Okay, so how do we actually turn this whole thing around? How do we start using our virtues, like kindness and generosity, as the powerful, precise tools they're meant to be, instead of as liabilities that drag us down?
Here's a really practical framework you can use. Before you agree to do anything for anyone, just pause and ask yourself 3 simple questions. First, does this actually align with my values and my goals? Second, can I do this without totally burning myself out? And third, and this one's important, will this person genuinely appreciate and respect what I'm doing? If the answer to any of those is no, then the strategic move is a polite but firm no. Suddenly, your yes becomes powerful and valuable because it's not a given.
And this leads to a super important distinction we have to make, the difference between being nice and being good. See, the world is absolutely full of nice people who don't really accomplish much of anything. They avoid conflict at all costs, they tell people whatever they want to hear, all because they want to be liked. But truly good people, they aren't afraid of a little conflict. They tell people what they need to hear because their goal is to create real, positive change. Being good actually takes a lot of courage.
At the end of the day, here's the bottom line. You can have the best intentions in the entire world, but history doesn't remember people who meant well. It remembers people who got things done. Your legacy isn't built on what was in your heart. It's built on the results of your actions, period.
So let's bring this all home and talk about what's really at stake here. We're talking about survival, and we're talking about the legacy you leave behind. So the question is, are you going to be the sheep that gets eaten by wolves, or are you going to be the shepherd who protects the flock?
Think about it. The kindest, most wonderful person on earth can't help a single soul if they get crushed before they even have a chance to make their mark. Survival isn't optional. It requires strength. And strength requires strategy. You have to protect your own power, not for selfish reasons, but so you have something left to actually lift other people up with. And this brings us to maybe the most famous and most misunderstood quote from Machiavelli. He wasn't telling you to be a tyrant. What he meant was that respect is way more durable than affection, that having an impact is more important than being popular. When you're strong enough to command respect, that's when you have the real power to be good when it actually matters.
And so that's where we'll end it, with a fundamental choice that you have to make. Are you going to keep letting your goodness be this passive vulnerability, this thing that leaves you exposed and weak? Or are you going to sharpen it, master it, and turn it into the single most effective tool you have for survival and for making a real impact? The choice is yours.